Hi, everybody. Dave Clark from InspectCheck-net. Another training video for you. So I know there's a lot of talk about multiple tapping and what's approved for multiple tapping, what breaker is, what breaker that's not. We'll talk about that. I've got my own ideas on that and things that I've seen. But today, I really want to talk more about the main service panel and or a sub panel actually too, but the main service disconnect or a main feed that is multiple tapped. Okay, so rather than get hung up on the fact of, well, is it approved, is it illegal, is it made for that, most main disconnects are not approved for that. Okay, and I know I've had electricians tell me, well, you can tap into that if you're going to put a sub panel in. I'm not a fan of doing it that way. I know a lot of my master electrician friends are not a fan of doing it that way. But I basically want to talk about two things. One is what happens if a main conductor is multiple tapped, multiple lugged, whatever you want to call it. We're not talking about branch circuits. Also, how do we report that, of course? And what about a sub panel? Can we multiple tap a sub panel conductor feed? So let's take a look at my screen, and I think it'll make more sense if I show you, because it's always better if you show somebody. So let's go, we're going to go to an older panel because I like looking at different panels. And here it is. And it's a pull-out plug, right? I'm going to go to, I think we'll go with red. So here's the pull-out plug. So this technically is the main service disconnect, right? We pull that plug out and that interrupts all the service, okay? So let's take a look at the top. Maybe I'll use yellow because this is, here are our main, this is our main service coming in right here. There it is, there's one right there. And our main service, there's the other one is right here. All right, so our main service conductors coming right in. We got the black and the red going in into our main service disconnect. We pull this, all the power's gone. But wait a minute, we've got something tapped in here. And so if you see two tapped in, we know that they're trying to make 240 volts, but not necessarily. They could be doing 120 for one branch circuit and another 120 for another branch circuit. I really, to be honest with you, can't remember where this goes. There's another situation down here we'll talk about at another time. But obviously this is an old panel, old fuses, and a lot of inspectors say, well, they're just going to recommend that this panel is updated anyway, but that's fine. I'm just using it for training purposes now. So if we see this, we see that this is tapped in here. Basically, what's protecting that? So what is protecting this? And the answer is these lines go right to the meter. So the answer is there's no protection. So just as a home inspector, try to think to yourself that every branch circuit or every sub panel should have some type of protection. Okay. And of course, this is the protection for everything down here and even for here and everything else. But what's going to protect this? If I pull this pull-out plug out or trip, if say it were a breaker and I flip the breaker, there's still power here. I can't turn that off. The only way I can turn it off is to disconnect it. And it's dangerous because it's live. I'd have to go to the meter channel, unless, of course, there's another disconnect somewhere. But in this case, there's not, and there rarely is. Okay. So that's for a main. Now, again, this could be a breaker here too. It doesn't have to be a pull-out plug, but if we're a breaker, it'd be the same thing. So we call it the line side of the main service disconnect is tapped, okay, or double lugged, whatever you want to call it. So we would call that out as a problem. I'll show you how to report that in a minute. But let's take a look at, well, we'll take a look at a sub panel. All right. So how do I know it's a sub panel? Okay. So now this is, how do I know it's a sub panel? Well, because I did the inspection, but I know that, look, there's no disconnect here, right? And we said that we can have no more than 6. So there's many more than 6. But I know that this is a sub panel because I know there's a main service disconnect somewhere else. There's other issues in this panel. We're not going to get into that right now. But we could see that this panel is fed. This is the feeder, if you will, coming from the main service, okay, going into this sub panel. And we'll see, here's our neutral, and there should be a ground somewhere, but I'm not sure if there even is because this panel's got some issues. They're using multiple branch circuits and minis and definitely some issues going on here. But we'll worry about that later. But right now, I just want to talk about the line side being tapped. So I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. So here we go. Here's our feed coming in, right? And so we got a hot here, and we have a hot here. He's got the red tape around there. That's fine. And you got the white tape showing the neutral. There should be a ground somewhere floating around in here. But anyway, look at what we've got right here. So we've got a 12 gauge wire tapped in here. So my question to you is, what's protecting this branch circuit? That's what we always have to ask ourselves as home inspectors. What is protecting the branch circuit? And the answer is, in this case, well, whatever is back here. In other words, wherever these cables go back, and I like the drip loops inside the panel, by the way, these go back to another panel. What's feeding that? And if you look at the size of the conductors, we have to say, well, it's probably a 100 amp breaker, and or it could be the main service disconnect itself. I can't remember, but it doesn't really matter. No matter what, this is not going to be protected properly. If this branch circuit gets overloaded, it's probably not going to trip the breaker on the other end, okay? So in this case, we're going to call this out as a defect for sure. We don't want anything on the line side, we call it, tapped in. And you always have to ask yourself as a home inspector at every branch circuit, what's protecting it? What's protecting? Again, this has other issues. All right, so I just want to show you something else real quick here and kind of put it all together. So let's go to this. And it's a little bit light. But anyway, here it is. Here's our main service disconnect, 150 amps, got a 2-aught cable coming in, aluminum cable. And this is our main service panel. Okay, and here it is. We got our hot here, 120 on each side, so it's 240 volts. Main service disconnect right here, rated at 100 amps. This is matched correctly. Very good. Okay, but we cannot put a branch circuit here and run this off to wherever, the family room. We can't put one in here. You can't do that. Because again, what's protecting it? Nothing. The meter, the electric company is protecting it. But if we do want to run a branch circuit to another panel, right? This is the proper way to do it. So we're going to put a 240 volt double pole. In this case, it's a 60 amp breaker rated properly for the conductors. And that will go to a sub panel. Okay. We're not going to get a sub panel from here. Now, I want to be very clear. I've had electricians tell me, well, if this box is full, if everything's full, we can run in here and run a sub panel out and run another service disconnect in that panel. A lot of my master electricians, and I disagree with that because, again, what's protecting this? This is running through the house somewhere. It's always going to be live. The only way that's not going to be live is if that meter channel is pulled, and that's just not going to happen, right? So nothing tapped here. Nothing tapped here. If we want to run a sub panel, we're going to put a 240 volt breaker here, sized correctly for whatever that electrician calls for the sub panel. So I hope that makes sense to you. I think it does. But what I want to do now is I want to bring up our report. I'm going to show you. So how would you report on that? Very simple, right? Going to go to electric service. And again, main supply, it could be the main. We could mark that as complete. What type of service? We'll say it's overhead in this case. Meter was outside, no problem, easy stuff. Main service conductor, and both of them, I think were aluminum. Not sure about the older one. But the issue here is this is outside, for outside. So if there's any issue outside, no problem. But we're going to come over here to a location of the main service disconnect. In this case, let me move up a little bit. It's going to be in the main service panel, right? Always. That's where it should be anyway. So we're going to say it's in the main service panel, and we could put a location if we want. What type is it? We looked at two different ones. One was a pull-out plug. That's fine. One was a circuit breaker. That's fine. Mark it complete. But we can't say satisfactory. And here's where we're going to make a note. The line or hot side of the main service disconnect is tapped right there. Very simple. Okay. This is a potentially dangerous condition. The conductors tapped into the line side of the main service disconnect do not have overcurrent protection. The conductors and the areas they are supplying are not able to be disconnected, which is right. Recommend immediate repair by a licensed electrician only. We don't want anybody going in there and making any change to that. Bad idea, right? Bad idea. In service panels, we could also make that here. We can make that notation if you wanted here in sub panels. We can make it again, but we really don't need to. What I wouldn't probably do is I'd come over here and I'm sorry, let me come down here to the line side is tapped, and I would put noted to. Again, we're kind of melding both conditions together. Main service panel and sub panel, or one or the other, right? In the one case, it was just the sub panel only. In the other one, it was noted to the main service disconnect, main service panel. And that's what the electrician can do then. Okay, it's simple as that. Mark the section complete and move on to the next thing. So what I want them to do is get the electrician. He comes over, he sees, oh, the line side going into the sub panel or the line side going into the main service panel is double tapped. It could be on the service disconnect itself if it's in that panel, or it could be in the sub panel being protected by the main service disconnect in another panel. Either way, it's not going to be proper. It's not going to be safe, and we want him to change that, right? Take that branch circuit and put another breaker in, or make it a sub panel proper. And we don't want the homeowner doing that, right? We never really want the homeowner doing any electrical work. I don't even want him changing a receptacle out. We're going to always have an electrician do that because it could be dangerous, right? So I hope that helped you. I know there was some talk about, well, you can double tap or multiple tap, and there are some circuits that can be done, some panels that are approved for that. In this case, I disagree with it. And I've had electricians tell me, well, if the panel's full and I have to put a sub panel, I'm just going to jump it off the top. And I've had many master electricians disagree with that. Put in, do something, put a mini, or put a breaker, a quad breaker. There's another video on that. Put a quad breaker and run that 240 volt to a sub panel. So there's always something you can do. And look, if it's that bad, recommend updating the service. We saw that pull-out plug with the fuses. We're going to recommend they update the service anyway. So simple enough, easy to report, easy to see. Hopefully, you got to pull those covers. I know a lot of people don't like doing that. I don't. I've been hit a couple times, so it's not my favorite thing, especially when the wiring's all cobbed up like that. But hope this helped you clarify a few things and gave you some good information on how to properly report that and advise your client, which is the other half of our job, right? So please subscribe here. We're going to be putting out videos all the time. We've got so much material, so many pictures and videos I want to put out. And you'll be the first one to find out about it. You can also go to homeinspectortrainingonline.com. And there's more information on videos, more information on our blog, and a lot of technical papers and some good stuff. So until next time, have a great day and see you soon.